just about to kick it off. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Contributor Growth Working Group meeting, which is part of the TAG Contributor Strategy. It is July 27, and we have a community meeting that's being recorded that will be shared on YouTube later on, which is under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically means be excellent to each other. So welcome. I'm Rian Klenas, your chair. I see people on the call that I do not know, so if we want to do a quick round of introductions, we can go around the room. I'll start off. At the moment, I'm the facilitator for the Contributor Growth Working Group and also the tech lead for TAG Contributor Strategy, helping to get things moving forward in the TAG and get as many people involved, work as we possibly can, and help in projects. And I'll throw it over to Ali.
Hey everyone, my name is Ali. I'm a principal engineer at Red Hat. I work on Knative, and I also contribute to TAG Contributor Strategy. And I'm a tech lead in this TAG for the website. So I'm kind of responsible for the contribute.cncf.io. And Andrew, you want to go next? Or Daniel?
Sure. Hey, folks. I just joined the CNCF staff itself at the start of July. I was at IBM for 20 years before that, so interested, collaborating on some of the Knative stuff, and serverless was one of the things I did in the past. But I'm here just at CNCF to help improve the developer experience for maintainers and contributors. So this is obviously a tag that's of great interest to me, and I love South Africa and New Zealand, so great to see some folks in there. I spent my honeymoon. It was great, and I spent time at University of Cape Town, so good to see you folks.
Nice, very welcome. It's good to have you here. Jay?
Kia ora. I'm community manager for II and NZ. Thanks for the shout out, Daniel. And also the co-chair for the mentoring working group under TAG Contributor Strategy alongside Nate, who's not here today. Josh, did you want to take it next?
Sure. I'm Josh Burkus. I'm co-chair of the TAG, TAG Contributor Strategy, and I work for Red Hat in the open source practice office. I also contribute to several CNCF projects, including Kubernetes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Again, apologies for my no camera today. I find my audio is just rubbish this week if I use the camera as well. So I'll need to fix that. So I've thrown a link again into the chat about the agenda. So I can start going through the agenda. I'm also not going to share a screen if we want to follow along on the agenda document. So the first topic is our README for this working group. Probably need a bit of an overall. One of the points that I've put up is since Caroline passed away, we would probably need to replace her as a lead. So I put that up as a point on the agenda. I'm not sure what is the process for electing or nominating, how we would go about that. Josh, you probably have the most experience with these things. Josh, you're muted.
Sorry, I need to be unmuted. It's actually pretty simple, which is that the new lead is nominated by the TAG chairs, and then we just notify, unless there's some other procedure already defined in the working group, which there isn't for this working group.
No.
And then we just notify the TOC that that's the case. Working groups don't really have official status in the TOC, so as a result, there's no required change of leadership process. So So question is, so who should we be listing? So basically, given that this working group hasn't exactly been thronged with people wanting to run it, who should we be calling lead for it? Rian, probably you, yeah.
I would not object, but
Okay.
it feels like a little, yeah, by the fact that I started helping on the facilitator, I think I've done one meeting with Caroline when she was still here, but I'm willing to carry the load unless we have anybody else that wants to take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, ideally we would have 2 or 3 people. So you being on it is not exclusive of recruiting other people. I mean, the problem that we're having right now is that we don't really have anybody involved who is not somebody who is already doing stuff for the tag. So, again, sort of first goal is to recruit other people who are interested in working on this. And we should talk more about that during this meeting. But in the short term, I think we list you as lead, Rian. And then if we can recruit some other people, we will also list them.
That would be good. So yeah, I think then maybe we put as an AI to mention it in Slack and ask if there's any other people that. And then also what I was thinking about the list of people that we have at the moment in the README, the problem. Follow up and say, is this still valid? Read me again.
Oof.
We're losing you a bit.
You were right about your audio being rubbish.
Apologies for that. So what I was saying, I think we might need to reach out to Karen and Faris and Jennifer and just check if they are still should be considered members, and if they're still good with that, which would be great.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we definitely should reach out. Realistically, we're probably reaching out to new people. The group that was going to focus on non-code contributors seems to have evaporated. I had some hope for getting new working group leadership out of that team, but they have not followed up at all. I would say in terms of recruitment, one of the things that we could brainstorm that would really help is to come up with some unstaffed initiatives that we think are a good idea and are exciting sounding, if you follow me. Because one of the problems is if you look at our list of to-dos, it's all paperwork stuff. And while those are all things that we need to get done, it's not inspiring for somebody to get involved with the working group. So we should, so honestly, I think the best thing we could do at the stage is to actually brainstorm some unstaffed things that we would really like the working group to do that are actually more exciting than, finish this guide or build this other thing out, etc. I mean, one of the things that might provide a little bit of an incentive to people is eventually the TOC wants our tag to get to the point of providing community planning reviews for projects, as in by the time projects are applying for graduated is the context it's being talked about in, that they should have some kind of a plan for contributor recruitment and turnover. And someone needs to evaluate that plan, which would be this working group. So that is one way to recruit people who work for major CNCF companies, simply because eventually their project will need to be reviewed. But that doesn't remove the need to also have some things that are sort of exciting on their own rather than being compulsory. So
Yeah, I
do we
think
want to use
you're right.
however much
I
time
think-
we have left in this meeting for a brainstorming session?
All right, let's quickly run through the agenda points, which is mostly work related, as you say, non-code things, if that's okay. The roadmap, if we want to open that issue, I'm not going to click on it, otherwise my order is going to go rubbish again. So basically the roadmap, there's only one AI point open in that issue that talk about having specific goals per tag or per initiative, which we didn't get around to. So I'm comfortable, Josh, you already also mentioned that you think this is always done, and I closed the old project board. So I think we can tick that off as done. I'm happy with that unless there's objections.
Nope. No, everything happens in the project board now.
Good. So if some of the Jay or Ali, if anybody else want to comment in the issue as well, to say this is done. Thanks, Ali. That helps.
Yeah.
Then the next topic is, okay, so how our roadmap got born is there was a open issue 329 to encourage a roadmap as a way to encourage contributors. So then Caroline and I think Dawn suggested, before we tell other people to have roadmaps, let's do our own.
Yep.
So we've gone through that, and I think the next step is now we need to work on this ticket. We've tasted the food, now we have to prepare it for
Right.
other people. So I
Yeah.
started the draft
And-
document. Right, Josh?
Okay, cool. And that actually ties into the brainstorming session we're about to do. So
Exactly.
The,
And there's even more work related to this. So
yeah,
that will fit into the brainstorming. So I started the draft document. So everybody's welcome. I think it's openly shared. Anybody can click on it that I have the link.
No, it's not.
And
We
not
no.
sorry. After the meeting, I'll make it available. I don't want to mess with my computer too much. I'm already on my backup internet. So I'll make it available to anybody that has the link, and then we can work in there and hopefully. So my question about this is, what's the thought? How should this be? Should it be a blog? Should it be just web content, or a bit of both?
so usually the way we do these things is we create an advisory guide. We get the advisory guide posted, like approved and merged onto contribute.cncf.io. And then we write a blog post or something to promote the new advisory guide.
Oh, yes, that makes sense.
So
All right, I think that should be fine there. So just sitting down, writing the things. Anybody that want to chip in there is more than welcome. I'll make the document available. Then list of curated tools and automations, which almost fits into the document about the roadmap. So this is also an old issue. So Ali suggested, because of the changes that we had to make to the help wanted label and to the there was some other label that also needed changing. So Ali made an issue to suggest that we fix those, and then we found this other issue that actually covers that sort of as well. So we combined the two issues together, and again I made a draft document, which probably not shared yet, sorry for that, where we then can discuss specifically. or the only automation thing that I was thinking about, but I was a bit of a one-track mind at that stage, is GitHub labels, the project boards, the workflows, automations, issue templates, and things like that that can be used. Roadmaps is probably then a tool there as well that we should then refer back to our other roadmap documents. So again, paperwork where somebody can sit down and do a lot of writing.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on this?
I mean,
Uh.
sounds good. If possible, I would like to actually break that up into more than one issue, like sort of one issue per sort of different, area. I mean, right now, the only thing we have on there is GitHub, right? But there are probably other things that we could have in there. Because part of this is I'm also looking at this as kind of a recruitment tool, right? Because again, particularly like as we develop that article on using roadmaps to recruit contributors, something that I think Andrew could contribute to here. This is a good example of that, right? Which is, and an example of how we would guide people to do it, right? Is that you want to break it down into manageable increments of work, which means smaller is better, like one document rather than, a whole structure. And say, hey, to do, write, how to better manage your GitHub repos to encourage contributors. With probably, and it would probably actually be several different articles, right? How to use labels, how to use project boards, how to use issue templates. That's actually 3 articles. Because like if I had time to write any of these things, I know I could actually write probably a full 1,000 words on how to use issue templates.
Yes.
And then put all these out there as help wanteds. And so then when we write our article about, hey, we need contributors to contributor growth, we'll have a whole list of help wanted things for people to get started with. And we can write our guide about how to use roadmaps with this list of help wanted things as an example.
Yes. And then we need to try it out and see what other things is out there. It's just one thing that came to mind now, the YouTube automation, uploading your YouTube, and then think what other things there are that we could automate and propose tools for.
The other one would be good, actually, would be social media automation, because having to swap around logins for social media in order to get stuff posted is a major pain in the butt for projects, and there are actually automation tools that work around that, but most projects don't know about them.
Cool. That's I only had GitHub on my mind at that stage, but
yeah.
Yes,
and speaking of, by the way, projects that aren't using them right now is our tag.
Yes.
Speaking of things we should have on the roadmap, because we really should be using Tweet Together and Mastodon together to actually post our social media. Although Tweet Together is probably going to be irrelevant 2 months anyway. So I wonder if there's an equivalent for LinkedIn. Anyway, yeah, so that would be one of the other things. And then of course, one of the issues that we can also have is suggest something else that could be automated to make the contribution experience better. Because there's probably things we haven't thought of. And the idea here is, somebody who's from some project that automated this one thing and it made their lives easier can write an article about that. And it's an opportunity to get a contributor who otherwise wouldn't participate in the working group, because they're not interested in the general work of the working group, but they have this one thing they can write about, and that's perfect for us, right? Because the whole goal is to share experiences between projects.
It's still a GitHub thing, but also like automating release notes kind of springs to mind, and automating what's the word? Like, so KubeVirt has like 46 repos or something. And so
Yeah.
we have a project infra repo to handle all of the like different ownerships and permissions that are required for different users
Yeah.
across different repos.
Yeah.
So that
And-
might be something useful as well.
And actually, we should reach out to the CNCF staff as soon as they're ready. We should put this on the roadmap because it can't be done yet. Is to write up Sheriff, their new GitHub management tool, because once it is fully deployed, CNCF projects will be able to make use of Sheriff to help manage their GitHub repos.
Sheriff
it's
would
not-
be a equivalent to the owners files that they use in Kubernetes.
It's not going to be as sophisticated as Parabolos and Prow. It's going to be rather more limited in the set of features. Like, for example, it's not going to support per directory owners files. It'll support like one owners file per repo. But it'll do things like automatically checking that your maintainers list matches who owns the repo, which has been a long-standing issue for CNCF projects. You know, and some other GitHub-related automation. So once that's actually ready for deployment, because the problem is, this is a tool being developed by the CNCF because they tried using a number of available open source and commercial tools and none of them quite worked. It's not ready yet, but once it's ready, we will want a write-up on contribute.cncf.io because we have a lot of CNCF projects that aren't big enough to deploy something like Parabolos. You know, and then ultimately it would be nice, you know, to get somebody to write up Parabolos and Prow, you know, a sort of TLDR level guide to Parabolos and Prow. I mean, not like a detailed technical guide for which they can go to the actual project, but just like a 2-pager of this is what they do, this is what they can do, this is what they can't do, these are the, you know, requirements to actually set it up, so that projects that are getting big can consider whether or not they want to move to this. Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a lot that could be written up in that area. And I'll just add things to the list because I have lots of ideas for automation.
Yes, please.
Because like is we're working on an automatically deployed new contributor environment at Kubernetes, and if once we finally get it to work, which is sadly dependent on GitHub fixing some things, then that's also an experience that projects care about and would be good to document as a way to do it.
Yeah, which also ties in a little with the infra working group, which falls under, which is dormant at the moment, where Hippie's team want to also bring around environments that you just spin up in the cloud for people to contribute to lower the the bar for people to contribute.
And yep, and you know, the next step from that, from my perspective, is for somebody on that crew to write it up so that project leads can start trying to actually follow it.
Now we are at the moment busy with Jay's team. We probably before the end of the year hope to have it rolled out in 1 or 2 schools to test it out for their code projects. And if that goes well, I think we would be ready to release it on the world.
Yeah. At some point, We should also ask the CNCF staff to write a projects lead guide to managing EasyCLA.
Who would be in charge of that?
Well, what's going to happen is we'll ask the CNCF staff, and they will ask the Linux Foundation staff who actually own EasyCLA, and we'll see how that goes.
Sorry, I was on mute there. If you want to share that with me, I can kind of circulate it and ask the right process.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, the user guide could become another, document in why we have to move off of EasyCLA. But an easier one, DCO bot.
Yeah, we have some other open source projects that always run into that with their everybody tries to use that DCO. They don't know exactly the setting. They end up adding their keys and all these things, and none of that is actually what
Yeah.
it's looking for.
Well, the answer there is documentation.
Yeah.
And that's nice because that doesn't involve dealing with the LFX team. So, but it should be a staff thing because, I don't actually have the answers, and I don't think anybody else in this working group does about how DCO bot is supposed to be properly used.
Hmm.
Oh, documentation is king.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, I opened up an issue actually on one of these projects on this exact issue. There was something nice actually from the Git vote has a nice little section on documentation on DCO that I wanted to cannibalize for something else, but that's one of those things. But yeah, I'm interested in helping you with this.
Yeah. So one of the other things that we need to put on the roadmap, but it actually has to be done by one of the CS leads, is which is not under automation. So let me figure out where on the agenda to put this, but I want to put it down while I'm thinking about it.
Put it up. You can put it up there by the overall roadmap that we need to write the previous.
Yeah.
Can put
Okay.
it there as well. On the issue 329.
Yeah, and this is probably a me. Is the TOC has tasked us with writing and getting on contribute.cncf.io a vendor neutrality guide. Because vendor neutrality is a goal and a requirement of the CNCF. But the truth is that companies for whom their CNCF project is their first venture into serious open source literally have no idea how to do it. And they need docs to help them figure out how to actually be vendor neutral.
There is actually, I'll go look for it, but there is actually
There's an issue,
there's an issue with specifically saying make a vendor neutral guide.
Yep.
Isn't this more about governance? Like the working group, governance working group?
I think the execution of the work is governance, but you need to include it in your governance model, if I can guess. But the guide on how to, I think, might be a documentation thing for a year.
Yeah, and it's actually, this is one of the many issues that actually unites contributor growth and governance, because it's governance as far as, say, selecting leadership positions, being fair in decisions, making sure that all parties can participate in roadmap development. But it's contributor growth in terms of recruitment and promotion of individual contributors. It's like the contributor ladder, right? The contributor ladder actually unifies governance and contributor growth, and is related to this issue for that matter. the which is one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up here. Also because, you know, our last governance meeting was 3 weeks ago before the issue was open. So
Okay,
the
yeah.
yeah,
I
so
think we shouldn't talk about it, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
like the folks maybe that are doing it, maybe they're more related to their area. Although we have a same shared of pool of people. So yeah.
yeah. However, that's also a help wanted opportunity because while we need a tag lead involved in creating that document, they don't have to be the only author.
Hmm. Well, I think we should start whenever people say, I want to help, point them towards here
Yeah.
is a list of documents that needs writing.
Yeah.
If you
Well-
want to dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying we should create issues for all of these and drop them on our project board.
Hmm.
The put them all in the backlog with help wanted tags. Because these are all things we want, and an awful lot of them will not happen unless a new person is recruited to do them. The and again, I think we have an opportunity here to recruit people who literally have time to do one thing, right? You know, this year they can spend 8 hours working on one article. And when we write our document on how to use roadmaps to encourage contributors, that's going to be part of it, right? Is to say, hey, you can produce bite-sized units of work, which give you the opportunity to recruit contributors who don't have time to be leadership.
Right.
So,
All right. I would encourage everybody to keep on adding to this list as we work on it.
Yep.
And add more automations as we think of it. Well, there's clearly more than just GitHub. If that's okay, I think I'm going to step over to the next issue so we have some time for our brainstorming. Okay, there's two issues. Create content for non-code centric projects and advisory documents for non-code roles. We did touch on non-code roles in the how to get started in open source. And I proposed in one of these issues that maybe that covered this issue. And then I got feedback from, I think, Alexandre that said we should rather do more about it. If I remember correctly. So I was thinking if we should maybe combine these two issues and then
They're
make
not-
it all.
they're not the same thing. So issue number 82 is a general one about creating a bunch of documents about potential non-code roles for projects that are still code-centric regular CNCF projects, right? So like, you know, write up a suggested role handbook, you know, for a contributor communications manager for a CNCF project. The issue number 327 is have an alternate version of our templates for teams for basically projects that are specifically not code centric, mostly committees effectively. So it's actually a sort of different thing because I mean, like, for example, if you look at our sample contributor guide, there's a lot of insert content here, sections for things like, you know, explain how to do a build, explain how to run the automated tests, etc., which end up not being really applicable if what your group is doing is producing specification documents. Also, I would say out of the two of these, I would still assign number 327 a pretty low priority. Partly because the TOC is working on creating tag templates elsewhere. And I feel like that should be handled, it needs to be handled completely separate from project templates, if you follow me. Project templates is for a CNCF member project, right? And the only variant that would make sense under that would be specifically for a specification project. And I think we could create that as sort of a to-do item, but CNCF fairly rarely does specification projects. And when it does do them, it handles them really badly. So I would tend to say we could put that on as a help wanted and in backlog. That is the specific subset of, we should have a variant of the project templates for a specification project. Because CNCF does have a few of those, even if it's very few. But put that as a help wanted on the backlog where like nobody's assigned to it. You know, so if somebody who's worked on that sort of thing, like somebody from Network Plumbing Working Group wants to show up and actually write that, they can. But we're not even going to devote effort to recruit anyone.
So about the tags, for example, I've seen there was some PRs about how to format tag, how to govern a tag, and so these are the things you're mentioning, right?
Yeah. So yes, yeah, and so that's being handled through the TOC repo, et cetera, and so it's not the job of Tag CS. So I will annotate this here. Yeah, no, actually, my plan is to open a new issue that's specifically spec projects and close this issue.
Well, that would help. And then write it up in detail what exactly it's about.
Yep.
Right. Thanks for clarifying that.
82, by the way, this is very, very good because, for example, recently I was reached out by some folks who are designers, UI, UX, and they asked how they can contribute to open source projects. So there are a bunch of issues, bunch of limitations and restrictions and things like that. But overall, if we had a guide that I could send them, hey, please first read this, that would be really nice.
Right. Yeah. So actually, that brings up a question, right? Which is, as far as I know, right now, the CNCF does not have any projects that are UI UX centric. That is, projects that mainly produce UI UX tooling, specifications, etc., rather than working on UI UX for a larger project that is mainly code. So if you think we're likely to get one, then that would actually form a second category of projects that might want a project template variant. And one of the things I'm thinking about here is that Red Hat actually sponsors one project that actually is that. It is actually just a whole big set of UI, UX templates and specifications, etc. But I don't think anybody's proposing to submit any such thing as to the CNCF. Are they?
No. What I said is not about that. More like like they want to involve in the open source, these folks that I want. And they don't know what to do. So basically, no.
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to, Ali, is people that want to do project management, or they want to do design work or graphic work or writing work, and not code.
Mhm.
That's what you mean? I will follow up. There's one person that asked he wants to do this work in that issue. I think he's assigned already. Yeah, he's actually assigned to the solve.
Okay, so yeah, let me
Awesome.
finish munging issues. The
All right, yes, and that brings us into
mhm.
the board cleanup when we're done with this topic. So what I've done is I discovered a thing this week where you can actually, if you go to contributor growth link, you could actually hide columns that's not applicable to specific areas. So like in mentoring, I took away the tracking, I took away the block. So we can actually remove some of these columns. It's pretty easy to do. So
Okay.
the key thing for here is what I want to do is everything that's in new, if we agree that it is valid, we just move it into backlog. I don't have to do anything about it. I want to actually get the new column empty. So whenever we get to this meeting, we just look at unlabeled things and we look at in the new column and see if they're valid for us, and we should label them.
Okay.
Okay, should we go through them one by one?
Yes, I think let's do that. Are you okay with that, Josh, Jay, Daniel?
Okay. Did we want to do any other brainstorming about initiatives that might attract contributors, or do we need to actually go through these first?
Josh, it sounds like you have ideas about the brainstorming, so we can do this offline and just reassign them to, if anybody that know that the issue is valid, just stick it in backlog. So we have another we're actually at time according to the schedule, but I'm good for another 15 minutes if everybody else
Okay.
is.
Yeah, I will have to stop firmly at the end of the hour. So
All right. So Josh, please take the lead on
yeah. Okay.
the brainstorm.
Yeah, so we just brainstormed a whole bunch of ideas for advisory documents we would like to have, in addition to the sort of backlog of, this project template needs to be documented, et cetera. I think we're pretty good in that respect. I think it would be good to come up with some ideas of areas where well, there's actually a couple of things. So one of the other things would be since we have had this request for, we actually put it in so one of them is the contributor plan review. So we need a template and a process for contributor plan review. That's all still essentially documentation. So I guess the other question is, what things do we have that are not documentation that are essentially to-dos that we could recruit people to?
The issues that I went through while looking at the board is unfortunately just most of what I have top of mind is things that need to be written up, documentation about like the roadmap, like
The
role.
The first thing that actually honestly comes to mind is the contributor tools project that never quite got off the ground. Part of that, as documented under automation there, is documentation, right? But in the course of that, we're going to find things that project leads want to do, but there aren't any tools for. Or that the tools for them are inadequate. So so if we could actually come up with some more specific goals for contributor tools where, the working group actually needs to potentially develop something, or contribute to something in order to get a tool that projects can use.
Any examples of those off the top of your head?
I actually don't know the state of the art right now because I wasn't working on the previous contributor tools project.
Okay.
I know that like GitHub ownership, automation, etc. I would be one of those, but part of that would have to start with an exploration of talking to the CNCF project staff and finding out what things Sheriff is going to do and what it's not going to do. And then looking at those areas where it's not going to do, because initially before the staff started working on Sheriff, Carolyn's plan was to basically create a list of sample GitHub actions that could be used to replicate part of Prow's functionality. There's a bunch of, GitHub projects that are 20% done in this realm from third parties. But I mean, basically what it comes down to is a lot of CNCF projects want what Prow does, but they can't possibly run their own Prow instance since a Prow instance requires and a dedicated administrator and your own backend Kubernetes cluster. But it's actually possible to do a subset of those on the backbone of GitHub Actions. It's just that you run into the usual problem that GitHub Actions are, as a system, very poorly documented, and people can't figure out how to make them work.
Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah, I just went through, and actually I should write a section of an article on this now that I've actually got it working, of how to automatically build container images every time you push a release tag. And to give you an idea of the scope of this, it took me literally 20 attempts to make it work. Because all of the documentation that GitHub supplies on automatic building of container images is 2 years out of date. And was never complete to begin with. So so, I mean, there's a documentation there, but there's also a code writing component of that, if you follow me, that is sort of figuring out a list of things that projects would like to have GitHub automation for, or other tools that literally don't exist, right? Like for social media automation, we have Twitter together, we have Mastodon together for automating that. I don't know if there's a LinkedIn together. And if there's not, could somebody under the auspices of TagCS fork, Twitter together and actually create one? Those sorts of things. So I think there's opportunities there for people who want to write a little code in support of contributor automation. I think we're going to find that there are huge opportunities in YouTube automation, because that, having struggled with it for Kubernetes, I can guarantee you that none of the existing tools really work.
Not about the automation, but I just think like, so it is about, if it's about community growth, like how do you measure, like, do people know how to use DevStats, for example? Well, okay, that is again documentation, but or is DevStats enough for measuring your community growth? Or can there be a tool or something like that? I don't know. Just thinking about it.
Yeah, well, Dawn wrote a very light document on things to look at in DevStats for community growth. But that could be a lot longer than it currently is. And for that matter, there's a sort of part of this, right? On the one hand, you can look at it from the perspective of, hey, here's how to use the existing DevStats and Clo Monitor maybe as well to, monitor and keep tabs, and other tools to monitor and keep tabs on your community growth. On the other hand, there's also the other side of it, is to say, hey, here are community growth questions that project owners want answered, that we really need new or better tooling from the various metrics projects to be able to answer. So you could actually work on either.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, DevStats is kind of stalled, partly because we haven't gotten feedback from project leads in ages about what things they would like to see about DevStats that aren't there, or are there in a very confusing way. So, and the answer may not be DevStats. It might be something else. There's a lot of active work on community metrics through the Chaos Project and other places.
So another non-documentation thing could be like, I don't know, going to the projects and telling them, hey, we have these guides, do you know about them, and things like that. Maybe it is part of the new TOC ask that you said, like, what was it called? Community planning, or what was it? Anyway, so that could be also another non-documentation and even non-code thing. So it's like more like a contributor growth working group ambassador that goes and something like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we could totally use that. We could use just, for that matter, also reaching out and saying, hey, if you have questions about recruiting contributors, which we know you do because every project does, you can come to the contributor growth working group meeting once a month, or if you can't make that time slot, schedule something else. It's available for that. Because I will point out, we have no projects here right now. Now, we have nobody joining this representing a project asking for help.
Right.
So and that used to be a thing that we did on the regular, because like, this is the #1 struggle for all projects. How do we attract and retain contributors? Well, except a few projects who aren't really trying, but and then that would be a tie-in with Maintainer Council or Maintainer Circle as well.
Yeah. There's some overlap there, right?
Yeah, I like the ambassador idea that actually take the work out and help the project. Just to be conscious of time, we're a minute to the hour. Any other topics that we need to touch on quickly, or shall we continue the conversation in Slack? All right. Thanks
Yep.
everybody for coming. This was a very busy meeting with a lot of notes taken. And let's
Yep.
go out and do things.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ed. Have a good day. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.